Hello, Inmendham. I'm the Masked Analyst. I noticed you posted a video response to my video about the DMCA and Renetto and Greg Solomon. I noticed you want to use my video to gain access to the people who've watched my video, and you therefore posted your video as a response. Yet you have blocked me, so I can't post a video response to your video. I find that pretty pathetic, Inmendham. I really do. It's kind of sad that you don't want to talk about this on a level playing field where each person has equal access to the other person's site. But be that as it may, your video did have some merit, and so I will try and answer the points to the best of my ability and to the best of my understanding of your intentions and what you meant to say. And again, maybe I'm not interpreting you correctly, but it seems like your first objection is that people won't know, if a copyright holder won't know the venue in which to file their suit. They won't know what the proper jurisdiction of the court is. Well, maybe you don't have the ability or the knowledge to know where to file it. I know I certainly wouldn't have it, but there are procedures developed as to what would be the proper court, the proper jurisdiction to file against anonymous internet posters. There have in fact been a fair number of lawsuits against John Does on the internet, and there are procedures and there are methods of determining where to file the lawsuit. And the fact that we don't know how to do it doesn't mean that there isn't a procedure set up. Just as probably neither of us know how to do brain surgery, it would be faulty to say that nobody can do brain surgery or that brain surgery doesn't exist. So there are procedures. And in fact, there are quite a few court cases that limit the ability of someone to find the true identity of someone who posts anonymously. It's very difficult, and the courts have made it so. It's difficult to pierce that anonymity unless you can actually show that you are likely to prevail in court, that you have some sort of realistic case. Now, the question is, why would this body of cases have been developed to protect people's anonymity if it was impossible to file lawsuits in the first place because no one knows what the proper jurisdiction is? It's kind of silly. You also object to my notion that people should have the ability to quash a subpoena anonymously. Well, assuming that YouTube passes the subpoena on to them, and YouTube does have the email addresses which we registered in order to post to their site, assuming YouTube does send the subpoena on to us, we do indeed have the ability to quash anonymously. Now again, I'm not an expert on the how-tos to do this, but I do know, and you'll probably see in some of the links, subpoenas have been quashed by John Does, and they've been able to maintain their anonymity. So just because neither you nor I know how to do this doesn't mean that a procedure, a legal procedure, isn't available to do it. I mean, I don't know how to build a computer from scratch. I'm guessing you probably don't either, but that's kind of silly to say that it's impossible to build a computer from scratch. It's just ridiculous. Now, just because I wouldn't know how to quash a subpoena on my own, I can certainly hire a lawyer if I felt strongly enough about it to try and get the subpoena quashed. And you might have to hire a lawyer in order to file a lawsuit. That's just the way it is. We may not have the specialized knowledge, but the knowledge is out there. Now, you suggested that anybody who files a DMCA should be forced to follow up if someone files a counter notice, and that YouTube should suspend their account if they don't follow up and actually file a lawsuit. Well, that's an improvement over the current situation, I have to admit that. But what happens if the person who filed the DMCA doesn't have a YouTube account, or if they've been suspended and they have nothing to lose there? It's hard to see what they sacrifice by filing a false DMCA. You did make a suggestion, and this really is quite an improvement over the current situation, that anyone filing a DMCA should have to, say, spend $10, give YouTube $10, I assume by using credit cards, so YouTube knows who they are, so that there is some level of accountability. And this might prevent a psycho slasher from killing their victim if they know that they might be identified. Well, maybe, maybe not. If someone's a true psycho, I'm not sure how logically they'll be thinking. But more importantly, what if, say, they're a member of organized crime? Suppose you do a video exposing a member of their gang or whatever. Well, one person could send in a DMCA. He can arrange to have a perfect alibi for himself, and another member of the gang can go and take care of business. Or what if it's not even organized crime? Let me give you an example. The Church of Scientology has a long history of harassing its critics. I'll post a link in my website, a link to my website to a page that discusses a little bit about the harassment policy. It's known as fair game. Now, the people in Scientology today will tell you that fair game no longer exists, but some critics say that, yeah, it no longer exists in name, but in practice it does, that Scientologists do harass their critics. Now, suppose somebody from Scientology were to start doing this, DMCAing videos. Certainly somebody from their church can post $10, what have you. They'll be identified, sure. But there are a lot of other people who, should they decide to harass somebody who's a prominent critic of theirs, well, that's just tough. And that's why the court system should be the protector of anonymity. That's why I would rely on the justice system, that no one should have to have their docs dropped. No one should have to reveal their identity unless a court actually decides that there's some merit to the case. Certainly you have to admit there are a lot of cases out there that can only be called ridiculous or bizarre, even if they don't meet the legal definition of frivolous. Oh, for example, I'm just making this up here. Say somebody has a history of filing lawsuits against others in the past. Say they filed 3 lawsuits against other people, and an observer called this guy a litigious motherfucker. And so this guy responded by suing him for libel for calling him a litigious motherfucker. Now this is ridiculous. This is absurd, and a court would recognize it absurd. And a court will weigh the harm that will occur to the person, to the defendant, if his identity is revealed, versus the harm that's inflicted upon the person who is called a litigious motherfucker, who has sued other people for 3 times and is going on a 4th case. And they'll look at that and they'll say, is it really worth revealing the identity? Should this person have to suffer for voicing his opinion of calling this other person a litigious motherfucker? And of course, it'd say, no, that's ridiculous, that's stupid, and it would act as a safeguard for this person. It acts as a safeguard to give us the breathing room for free speech. And that's the problem with your proposed solution. It really doesn't have that type of safeguard that is necessary for us to exist in an open and free society. That's the whole problem with the situation right now. That's the whole problem with your solution. It's better than what we have. It certainly is better than what we have. But in my book, it's still not good enough. It still doesn't give us the adequate measure of protection so that we can speak freely upon controversial issues, so that we can step upon some toes. And if we're being truthful, we should be able to step upon some toes. And we should be able to piss off some people without having to fear that we will either lose our YouTube account or have to reveal who we are to somebody who may not have good intent toward us. Well, this has been the Masked Analyst, under an N.